Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the first lecture of semester 3 intermediate microeconomics. Now, let me just go ahead and give you a complete introduction of how we are going to go ahead through this course of microeconomics. So the aim of this, intermediate microeconomics is to make you aware of two important theories. One is the complete consumer theory, and the other is going to be producer theory. So in consumer theory, we are going to go ahead and look at various concepts, like what is a budget line, like what is a utility function, what is an indifference curve. For example, what are the different kind of indifference curves? What is a Slutsky equation, etc., etc. Then in producer theory, we are going to look at how to minimize cost, how to maximize profit, what is a production function, and different such concepts. What is returns to scale? What is elasticity of substitution? Majorly, this is a bigger chunk. This is going to constitute 45 marks in your exam, even 50 sometimes. Producer theory is a little less. It has less topics in it, just 3 chapters in it. So this constitutes 30 marks paper. Okay. Now, till now, the pattern of the paper is that you will have 7 questions. It varied, because of COVID-19, the number of options increased. So, 8 questions. During COVID, during this phase when people went from online to offline, things changed. So, from 3 hours, you were given 3.5 hours to attempt the paper. You were given more options, but this is more or less the pattern. Out of the part A that you would be given, you will have to attempt 3 out of 5 questions. And in part B that you would be given, you will have to attempt 2 out of 3 questions. So in total, you will have to attempt 5 questions out of 8 questions. Each question, each of these 5 questions would be for 15 marks, constituting a 75 mark paper. There would be various internal options also that you would be given across this paper that you have to go ahead and do. That's the first part. Now, the second thing that you have to understand is how would we be going through this course. So if you look down in your portal, all these consumer and producer theory chapters would already be listed down there. So you can go ahead and start looking at those recordings. Don't be too overwhelmed. Don't try to do a lot in a week or in 2 weeks. Go slow. Just do what I ask you to do before we do this live session. So for example, for today, I'm going to only go ahead and focus on chapter 2 budget lines, as you would have been informed before. The aim for this lecture is for you to go ahead, and by now you should have read chapter 2 from the portal. When you come here, I will give you a summarized view of what chapter 2 is, and I will follow it by few past year questions that came in the exam. Then in your portal, you will see that slowly you will have the solutions of Snyder and Nicholson and Varian Workbook also. Both of these would be available in your portal. If possible, do Snyder and Nicholson also. Otherwise, doing Varian Workbook is the minimum. The paper is going to be completely mathematical. You cannot go ahead and clear this exam if you take a theoretical approach to this paper, as I will show you today only in the past year question. So the aim is to go ahead and do this Varian Workbook completely. Not even a single question, even if it is repeated, you may think that this is very simple, it's just changing price here, there, income here, there. No. You have to do each and every question of Varian Workbook before you come to this class. And then if you have any doubt, you have to go ahead and ask those doubts to me. You can ask it via portal. You can go ahead and ask it on the group also. Other than that, you will see that we are going to go ahead and go in a particular pattern where we finish consumer theory first and follow it by producer theory. So today I'm going to go ahead and revise this chapter 2 with you, which is going to be on budget lines. Now, the next week that I meet, we will be doing chapter 3 and 4 of Varian. I would be revising that and doing all past year questions with you. So the aim should be that when you come back on next Saturday, you should have read chapter 3 and 4 from the portal. You should have looked at all the questions posted in the portal from Varian Workbook. And if you are actually aiming at doing masters in economics, then you should go ahead and also look at all the Snyder and Nicholson questions. They will give you a greater edge over other students. So this is going to enhance your knowledge further. So this is what we are going to go ahead and follow. Every week I'll tell you what needs to be studied from the portal. You study that, you come into the class, then we go ahead and discuss that together. Now let me just talk a bit about budget lines. So to begin with, what is a budget line? A budget line usually tells you the budget of any individual. The budget of any individual can be measured through the income of the individual. Let's say that income of the individual is given by M, and let's say that there are two commodities, good 1 and good 2. Let's say consumer consumes X1 units of good 1 and X2 units of good 2. Then we must know the price at which the consumer consumes these commodities. Let's say P1 is the price of good 1 and P2 is the price of good 2. Then we can write the budget line of consumer as P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to income of the consumer. Let's see what we have done. We are saying that X1 is the number of units I consume of good 1. Suppose I consume 10 units of good 1. P1 is the price of each unit. Let's say the price of each unit is 3. Then P1 X1, this is going to measure the expenditure on good 1. Similarly, P2 X2 is going to tell me what is my expenditure on good 2. And my expenditure on good 1 plus on good 2, that is going to give me the income of consumer. If I exhaust my entire income, so let's say my income is 100. Let's say price of good 2 is 5. I'm spending 30 rupees on good 1. So I must spend 80 rupees, 70 rupees on good 2. Each unit is worth 5 rupees. So can you tell me how many units will I consume of good 2? I must go ahead and consume 14 units. 14 into 5 will give me 70 plus 30. 100 is going to be the income of the consumer. So if the consumer exhausts his entire income, expenditure on good 1 plus expenditure on good 2 must be equal to the income of the consumer. It might be possible that consumer does not consume his entire income. Whatever he spends on good 1 plus whatever he spends on good 2, it can be less than his income also. Now, if I include the bundles which constitute less than the income along with the bundles which constitute exactly equal to income, that is called the budget set of consumer. So the budget set of consumer has 2 kind of points in it. One, where consumer consumes his entire income, and 2, where he consumes less than his income. Either he is consuming his entire income or he is consuming less than his income. Both these bundles are included in the budget set. But, if I have to go ahead and plot this, I can only start by plotting a line first. So, if I ask you how to plot P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M, you will tell me that I must find the extreme points. So what can I do? I can put x1 equal to 0. If I put x1 as 0, I will get P1 into 0 plus P2 x2 is equal to M. So my x2 will be M by P2. This will be my x2. If I put, my x2 as 0, then what will I get? P1 x1 plus P2 into 0 is equal to M. So I will get x1 as M by P1. If I have got my extreme points with me, I can go ahead and I can just write it here. So good 1, good 2. Here, if I'm consuming only good 1, I am on the x-axis. So this would be M by P1. If I am consuming only good 2, I will be on the y-axis. So M by P2. If I join this by a line segment, this will be my budget line. What is going to be the slope of this budget line? Now, there are various ways to calculate that. First, slope can be measured by perpendicular divided by base. If you notice, the perpendicular of this entire budget line is M by P2. The base of this budget line is M by P1. So I get the slope as P1 by P2. Of course, this is a downward sloping line, so I put a minus sign. Minus shows that it is downward sloping and the slope is P1 by P2. That's the first way to find the slope. There is another way also. If I say that my budget line is P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M, I can write x2 as M minus P1 x1 by P2. I can compare this with the mathematical equation which says y is equal to mx plus c. C is the intercept on y-axis, m is the slope. If you compare, actually m by P2 is the intercept on the y-axis. I am getting the same thing, m by P2. That's correct. So what is the slope? Slope will be minus P1 by P2. So from here also, I can say that the slope of the budget line will be minus P1 by P2. That's the second technique to find the slope. There is another technique that you can use. So technique 2. Any one technique is fine, but you should know all of those. Let's see the third one. Let's say that I write the equation of my budget line as P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M. Now let's introduce change throughout. So I say, okay, I am changing the consumption of good 1. I am changing the consumption of good 2. Maybe something like this. So consider that this is my budget line. I have a point A here and a point B here. When I go from point A to point B, what am I doing? I am decreasing the amount of good 2. I am increasing the amount of good 1. So I am changing the amount of good 1 and changing the amount of good 2. I am keeping the prices the same. No change in price. And here also I have change in income. But if you are on same budget line, what will happen to change in M? That would be 0. When I go from point A to point B, I am on the same budget line. If I am on the same budget line, my income is not changing. So change in M is 0. So I can rewrite this by saying P1 change in X1 plus P2 change in X2 is 0. This means that P1 change in X1 is minus P2 change in X2. And this means that change in X2 upon change in X1 is minus P1 by P2. If you notice, if I ask you what is the slope from AB, I told you that slope is perpendicular by base. What is coming on perpendicular? The change in amount of good 2. So perpendicular is change in X2. What is coming in base? The change in amount of good 1. So change in X1. So the slope can be written as change in X2 upon change in X1. So change in X2 perpendicular upon change in X1 base, and that gives me the same thing, P1 by P2. Now this is the most used definition of slope. Why? Because this tells me what is the change in amount of good 2 as I change the amount of good 1. So, if you notice, when I go from point A to B, I am increasing good 1. But I can increase good 1 only by decreasing good 2 because I have limited income. That happens in our daily life. If I have 100 rupees and you ask me to buy more chocolates, I will be able to buy less pens. So I can increase good 1 only by decreasing good 2. So this tells me what is the opportunity cost of changing or increasing one good at the cost of decreasing the other good. When I increase one good at the cost of the other good, how much do I have to give up? So, let's say that in my example, the price that I had taken for good 1 was 3 rupees and good 2 was 5 rupees. So I can just put those values here and I will get it as minus 5/3. So which means that, let's say I want to increase good 1 by 1 unit. So what will I get? I will get change in x2 by 1 is equal to minus 5/3. So change in x2 will be minus 5/3. This means that if you have to increase good 1 by 1 unit, see, I changed good 1 by 1 unit, then I must decrease good 2 by 5/3 units. This is what it means to be the slope. To increase one good, how much are you decreasing the other good? Now, sometimes we may have good 2 as all other goods. Imagine that I am not consuming only 2 commodities. I am consuming more than 2 commodities. How do I show more than 2 commodities using this budget line? One way could have been this: P1 x1 plus P2 x2 plus P3 x3 plus Pn xn is equal to n. So this tells me that, okay, I am consuming good 1, good 2, good 3 till good n. That is one thing that I can do. The other thing that you can do is, you can say P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is m. But now x2 is not one commodity. x2 represents all other goods. And x1 maybe represents a car. So sometimes we want to focus a lot on just one good. So we keep that good as the first good, and all other goods become my second good. And this is how we can go ahead and write. In such cases, when x2 represents all other goods, x2 is called a composite. For a composite good, we keep the price of composite good as 1. So what do I get? I get P1 x1 plus 1 into x2 is equal to m. And this tells me P1 x1 plus x2 is m. This is the expenditure that I do on car. So x1 is the units of car that you buy. P1 is the price of each car. So this can be your expenditure on car. And this right here represents expenditure on all other goods. So I then am saying that either you spend your income on some part of your income on car, and you spend your other part of income on all other goods. Other goods can be wheat, rice, jute, etc., etc. All other goods are represented by X2. So X2 becomes a composite good. The price of composite good is kept at 1, and this right here is called numeraire price. When you keep the price at 1, it's called the numeraire price. Now, please make this diagram. So in budget line, we can have various things. We can have a shift of a budget line, or we can have a pivot of the budget line. Shift of budget line takes place when the slope is unchanged, which means only income changes. And pivot of budget line takes place when slope changes. So whenever there will be increase in income of the consumer, it will shift budget line outwards. Decrease of income will shift budget line inwards. Whenever there is change in the slope, which means either price of good 1 is changing or price of good 2 is changing, what happens to the budget line depends on how the prices change. So let's take an example. Suppose I tell you that initially your budget line is 4x1 plus 5x2 is equal to 200. Income is 200, price of good 1 is 4, and price of good 2 is 5. And I ask you to plot this budget line. This is good 1. This is good 2. On your x-axis, what is the intercept? M by P1. So M by P1 will be 200 by 4, which will be 50. On your y-axis, what is the intercept? M by P2. So 200 by 5, it will be 40. And we get a budget line like this. Suppose now I tell you that there is increase in the income of the consumer and income increases to 400, suppose. Then what will happen? What will be your new budget line? It will be P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to new income. What is your new income? New income is 400. Prices are unchanged. So this is still 4, this is still 5. And 5. What will be your new intercept on the x-axis? It will be 400 income by price of good x. It will be 100. What will be your new intercept on the y-axis? Income by price. It will be 80. So here somewhere you have 100. Here somewhere you have 80. You can join that and you will get your new budget line. So the new budget line must be a parallel shift because the slope is not changing. Only there is increase in the income of the consumer. Now just keep giving it a try. In your practice, try what happens when income decreases to 100. You will see that it will shift inwards. Now suppose I tell you that there is decrease, let's say increase in price of good X to 5. So earlier price of good X was 4. Now price of good X is 5. So when it was 4, My budget line was 4x1 plus 5x2 is equal to 200. Now, if it is 5, my budget line will be 5x1 plus 5x2 is equal to 200. Now, just imagine this. When it was this is how my budget line looked. We just drew it. Good 1, good 2. I had it, I had 50 here and I had 40 here, and this was my budget line earlier. Now what will be your budget line? So notice that if I find the intercept on my x-axis, it will be m by px. Income is same, but price has now increased to 5, so it will be 40. So I will have an intercept here. Intercept on the y-axis will be m by py. Nothing happened to price of good y, so it is the same. So this will be my new budget line. It will pivot inwards. You must do all the cases. Try changing price of good y to 6 rupees, changing price of good y to 4 rupees, and draw all such budget lines. Now, based on this concept, there is another thing which I can do with my budget line, and that is called rationing. In case of rationing of budget line, what do we do? Imagine that this is my usual budget line. This is good 1. This is good 2. This is intercept m by px. This is intercept m by py. Now the government comes in between. And the government says that, look, you cannot have more than X bar units in the market. Suppose I tell you that initially my budget line is 4x1 plus 5x2 is equal to, let's say, 200. So this was coming as 50. This was coming as 40. Now the government steps in and the government says, look, X1 or good 1 cannot be more than 30 units. You cannot produce more than 30 units in the market. And can you consume 50 units really? You cannot. You cannot consume more than 30 units. This is called rationing. In case of rationing, because you cannot consume more than 30 units, you will not have this part of the budget line. Only this part will be there. So this becomes your new budget line. You cannot move away from 30 units. That is the maximum that you can consume. Now, let's talk about taxes and subsidies. There are 3 kinds of taxes and subsidies that you can introduce: specific, ad valorem, and lump sum. When I talk about a specific tax, it is a per unit tax. Per unit tax means it is going to increase the price of the good on which it is imposed. When I say per unit subsidy, it decreases the price of the good on which it is imposed. Let's say that the per unit tax is P. Okay. Now the question that I'm asking is, suppose it is good 1 on which you impose the tax. What will happen to the budget line? If earlier your budget line was P1 x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M, then your new budget line will be P1 plus T. Price has increased by T rupees into x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M. Suppose instead of this, the government says, I will give you subsidy of S rupees per unit on good 1. And the price will be P1 minus S x1 plus P2 x2 is equal to M. So if there is a tax, it increases the price. If there is a subsidy, it decreases the price. Now consider ad valorem. What is going to happen in ad valorem? In case of ad valorem, you are going to put a tax, but it is going to be percentage of the price. So suppose I tell you that P% of price, that's the tax on good 1, suppose. So P% of P1, how do you find percentage? P into P1 upon 100. This is the tax that you are imposing. So price will increase by the amount of tax. What will be the new price? P1 plus P1 by 100. This is the new price. X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to M. This will be your new budget line. Instead of writing P1, you will increase the price by this amount. If there is a subsidy, what will you do? P1 minus SP1 by 100 into X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to. I will show you a question just now after this that came in the past year. Now let's say that there is a lump sum tax that you have. Then what will happen? Well, if it is a lump sum tax, I am not putting a tax on a particular commodity. I am asking, give me 100 rupees as tax. So my income will reduce by the amount of tax. And if it is a lump sum subsidy, my income will increase by the amount of subsidy. So this, because it is reducing income, will shift budget line inward. Because this is increasing income, it will shift budget line outwards. But because specific and ad valorem, they are affecting your price. So they are affecting your slope. So they are going to pivot your budget line. Let's look a question on this from the past year. Okay, so we are going to take a look at the first question. This one. Consumption bundle is described. His money income is M. This is given by 100. Price of good 1 is given to you as 10 and price of good 2 is given to you as 10. How does his budget constraint change when the government gives him a lump sum subsidy 50 regardless of his consumption bundle? So what will be his initial budget line? It will be P1 X1 plus P2 X2 is equal to M. So if I solve this, I will get P1 is 10 X1 plus 10 X2 is equal to 100. This is my initial budget line. And then I'm given a subsidy of 50 rupees. So subsidy means it will increase my income. So it will be 10 X1 plus 10 X2 will be 100 plus 50. So it will be 10 X1 plus 10 X2 is equal to 1. This will be your old budget line. This will be your new budget line. This is your old budget line. This is your new budget line. Just plot them. How do you plot it? We know that if this is good 1 here and good 2 here, on the x-axis I have M by Px. So M is 100 by 10 is 10. So this is 10. So here M by Px is 100 divided by 10, which is 10. And M by PY is also 100 by 10, which is 10. So I have 100 here, and this is my budget line. And in this one, my budget line will be M by PX. So income is now 150, price is 10, so it will be 15. And M by PY will also be 15. This will be here. So it is going to shift my budget line outwards. You have to tell clearly in exam that there is going to be no change in slope of budget line. You have to give this equation correctly in the exam. What is your old budget line equation? What is your new budget line equation? That must be given. Now let's go to the next question. So consider this. If good X is 5 rupees, so price of good X is decreasing, good Y is 10 only, nothing happened to price of good Y. So initially, my budget line was 10 PX plus 10 PY is equal to 100. This was my old budget line. Now it is saying that for the new budget line, price of good X is 5. So this is 5 PX plus price of good Y is 10 only, 10 PY. He has to spend all his income of 200. This is 200. Now just draw the budget line for now. So what will be your budget line now? So what is M by PX? It is 200 by 5, which is 40. M by PY, 200 by 10, which is 20. Right? So I will have 40 here, 20 here, and this will be my budget line. So what is the slope of this budget line? Slope is price of good X divided by price of good Y. Just write X here, not PX. X, not PX. This is my budget line. So my slope will be half. What was your slope earlier? It was 10 by 10, which is 1. Okay. Okay. Let's take one more question now. But before I do this, let me teach you one last concept here. And that is the concept of food stamp. There are two kinds of food stamp programs that you may want to study. One is where you get food for free for certain units. And the second is where you have to pay for the food, but you have to pay less for certain units. And then you have to pay the regular price for the remaining units. Just consider the first one. Suppose I tell you that initially, this is my budget line. This. Now I tell you, you know what? Earlier, supposedly, I'll take the same budget line. 4 into X plus 5Y is equal to 200. So you had 50 here and you had 40 here. Now I am telling you that even if you would have spent your entire income on good X, you could have consumed 50 units maximum. Now there is an offer that I am giving you in which I am telling you that the first 5 units are free for you. You don't have to pay anything. What does that mean? It means that even if you spend your entire income on good Y, then also you will have 5 units of good X that you can consume because it is free. So this point tells me that I'm spending my entire income on good Y. But now I'm saying even if you spend your entire income on good Y, you still have 5 units free. So I draw a straight line showing those 5 units. But post those 5 units, every extra unit of X can only be consumed if you pay for it. So if you have to pay for X, you cannot consume 40 units in Y. You will consume less of Y because you are paying something for good X. So which means that you will have the regular budget line after that. So what we are saying is here there is a trade-off, the usual trade-off, that to increase X, you must decrease Y. That we know. That trade-off is given by change in X2 by change in X1 is minus P1 by P2. So if I want to increase good X by 1 unit, I must give 4 by 5 units of good Y. That's the slope. But now what has happened is I have got these 5 extra free units. In that case, if you spend your entire income on good X, how many X will you consume? So entire income on good X would have meant that Y was 0. When Y was 0, I was consuming 50 units by paying for them. But now I get 5 free units. So in total, I will have 55 units. So this intercept will be 55. That is the first thing, where you get some free units. The second thing is you're not getting free. But the question is telling you that the first 5 units, you have to pay 2 rupees per unit, which means you have a subsidy of 3 per unit. And then you have to pay the regular price of 4 per unit. So basically what the question is saying you is that for the first 5 units, the price is 2 rupees per unit. So your budget line will be 2 price of good X into units of X plus price of good Y into units of Y is equal to income. And after these 5 units, this is for first 5 units. And after these 5 units, then what is your budget line? It will be 4x plus 5y is equal to 200. This is what is happening. So just note, for the first 5 units, if I ask you, what is the slope? The slope will be 2 by 5. Price of good X by price of good Y. And what is the slope later? It is 4 by 5. So here, 2 units, perpendicular is 2, base is 5. Here, perpendicular is 4 and base is 5. Are you getting it? So this line must be a flatter line. And this is the rule. Lesser the slope, the flatter the line. Here slope is 0.40, 2 divided by 5. Here slope is 0.80. So if I have to draw this, I will get, so this is suppose my initial budget line. It was like this now. I had 50 here and 40 here. This was my initial budget line. Now I am saying for the first 5 units, my budget line is flatter. The slope is 2 by 5. And then it is the same. So it becomes 4 by 5, just like I had earlier. Only for the first 5 units, my budget line is going to be a little flatter. Its slope is going to be lesser. It's going to be 2 by 5. And later, it is going to be again 4 by 5 like it had earlier. So this becomes my budget line. Note that this is not completely horizontal. No, this is just flat. So make sure that you don't draw horizontal. It has to be a little flatter. This is it. And then it becomes steeper. Let's quickly do one last question based on it. So this question came in one of the paper. I like this question a lot. Assume that store offers 2 schemes of discount on purchase of cashew. I will do this and you try this yourself. Okay. So there are 2 offers that the store gives you. The first is buy one, get one offer, and the second is cashback offer. In buy one, get one, it is saying that, just use this. In the buy one, get one offer, when a consumer buys first kg at price PX, he gets the second cashew free. In cashback offer, when he buys the first kg at price PX, he gets a cashback of PX, and then for remaining he pays. So look at what happened in the first one. It's like this. The first unit that I bought automatically gave me 1 more unit free of cost. So in the price of 1 unit, I am getting 2 units, which means ideally each unit costs me half of the original price. That is what happened. When you get buy one, get one, suppose you buy Maggi for 10 rupees, but there is a buy one, get one offer, which means each Maggi costed you only 5 rupees. So which means that I can say that for first 2 units, I have my budget line as this. And for the remaining units, I have the regular budget line. So when you were not given this offer, your budget line was something like this. Its slope was Px by Py. Right? When you are given this offer for the first 2 units, what is the slope of your budget line? It will be price of good X by price of good Y. So it will be Px by 2 divided by Py. So half into Px by Py, which means your slope is half of the original slope. Slope is decreasing. So for the first 2 units, now my budget line will become flatter because slope has decreased. And after that, I am getting at the same price, no offer. So slope would be the same as the original budget line. So this red line will be the budget line when you are given this offer. Here, it is going to be flatter. The slope is half Px by Py. Here, the slope is Px by Py. Let's look at the second question. Cashback offer. So cashback is this. I bought the first unit at the rate of Px, and the moment I paid you, you gave me this Px back. So ideally it was free of cost. So which means you got this first unit free because you got complete cash back on that unit. So if initially this is your budget with slope Px by Py, now I am saying my first unit is free. I didn't pay for it. So it will become horizontal because it is free. And then you had the usual trade-off. This will become your new budget. So your new budget line will be first unit free and then the usual trade-off. Whereas here, this is not free. It is half the original price. So it is flatter, not horizontal like this. It will be flatter and then it will be steeper. It's an excellent question. It usually comes in exam like this. So it is to be practiced again. Now I leave it up to you, and you will come up with this answer that which of the two offer is better. Which is the offer in which the consumer would be benefited more. Try this yourself. So what you have to do, go through chapter 2 thoroughly, do all the variant questions and revise this live lecture. And before you come for the next Saturday's class, do chapter 3 and 4 from your recorded lectures in the portal. Okay? Okay, thank you.